So welcome everyone. Daf Chav Ched Amud Bet, Gemara Sukka, and we are about a third of the way down the page. Amar Mar. Just to review from last week, we were talking obviously about the drasha in the Mishnah. The fact that it mentioned in the Mishnah that Nashim were P'turot from the mitzvah of Sukkah. And this was quizzical because we know women are P'turot. It's a mitzvah seisha zman grama. So the Gemara had adduced two possibilities as to why you might think that women are actually obligated in the mitzvah of yeshiva b'sukkah. Also, in that context, the idea that here in the Mishnah, it points out that Katanim are P'turin min sukkah, and then right after that, it mentions that a Katan she'eno chayev le'imo, she'eno tzarich le'imo rather, chayev b'sukkah. So children are exempt, and then, well, children who don't need their mothers anymore, I have to define what that means now in the Gemara, they're obligated. P.S. The Gemara, at the very beginning of the Gemara, had quoted from the pasuk that we've gone back to again and again and again, Basukot from Vayikra Chav Gimel, Basukot Teshvu Shivat Yamim, Kol ha'ezrach b'Yisrael yeshu basukot. It could have been ha'ezrach b'Yisrael yeshu basukot, but it said kol ha'ezrach. What's the riboy? Why is there an extra, seemingly superfluous word? The Gemara says l'rabot et katanim, to include children. And this, of course, is also going to be a subject of discussion because children are not obligated in any mitzvah deoraita. Children. So then how could it actually say that there's a word from a pasuk that somehow teaches us that children are obligated in the mitzvah of sukkah? Those two things cannot both be true. So I have to understand that. Finally, there's a little story at the end of the Mishnah, which the Gemara itself will throw its hands up and ask, what is this story doing here? Because the story seems to undermine the point made in the Mishnah. Both the point that Katanim are P'turim min sukkah, and the point that a Katan she'eno tzarich le'imo chayev b'sukkah, which is, the story seems to be about an infant whose Zaidi, Shammai Hazakein, wanted to make sure he was inside a sukkah. So that seems to fly in the face of what we saw previously. Either children are P'turim, and even if they're not P'turim, they're chayavim somehow. They're chayavim in the sense that they don't need their mothers anymore, so they're self-sufficient, so then they can go in the sukkah. They're obligated in the sukkah. How could it be also that then there's a story about the baby? Who's that for? So I'll have to understand that a little bit as we go through the Gemara. Those are the main topics. If we'll only be so lucky, we'll do the Mishnah and the first part of the next Gemara as well, just to keep the continuity. Amar Mar. I'm on Chav Chet Amud Bet. First words of the line, Amar Mar. 12, 15 lines down or so. Amar Mar. Kol l'rabat k'tanim. V'hatnan nashim v'avadim k'tanim p'turim min sukkah. Right? How could it be true that you have a word that is darshan to explain that children are in fact included in the obligation? And right after that, we also have the statement in the Mishnah that tells us that children rather are exempt from it altogether. Lo kashi kan b'katan she'giya l'chinuch, kan b'katan shelo yagiya l'chinuch. One is talking about a child that has become of age of chinuch, the other has not yet. Katan she'giya l'chinuch mid'rabanan hu. Right? So when we talk about a katan she'giya l'chinuch, that's mid'rabanan. Mid'rabanan cross machta ba'almahu. And the fact that there is a pasuk of the word kol that's learned from that pasuk, kol l'rabot and katanim, does not really mean that it's literally a drasha, but rather it's an asmachta. So that when you and I are in shul several times a year, that we hear several times in a year until COVID-19, that we would hear, and we will soon again, Mirza Shem, hear Parshat Emor Lamed, second day Yantif, Shavuos, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, and Sukkot even more so, both days of Yantif. So we hear the words, and each of the words, for someone who's already learned a little more, that word is the limud that goes for this concept, and this word is the asmachta, the anchor. Hi, Ronnie, welcome. The asmachta, the anchor of a rabbinic idea. It is not of biblical stature, yet it is connected to that word. You could say it's like as a mnemonic device. And when I get that, oh, that's kol, that reminds me the children are also obligated. And the truth is, it's a little challenging here because when you go back to Chav Zayin Amud, which we won't do tonight for want of time, these words were actually all darshan. The word kol was the rabot gerim as well. So it's a little bit strange. But the point of the Gemara here is that the katan that is obligated is a katan that is already arrived at chinuch. The katan that is completely patur is one that is not arrived at chinuch. And the word kol, the rabot and the ktanim, is strictly for the purpose of being an asmachta. It's to connect us to the text. It's not actually a limud as such. If you look at Rashi here, right here, says katan shigil chinuch. He tells you it's misheino tzarich le'imo. We're going to come to define that a little bit better in a couple of minutes. It's the next thing in the Gemara. Asmachta ba'alma ukral Rabbi Eliezer k'di'it le the rabot ger shenidgar ben atayim v'katan shegado the osim sukkah b'chol shamoid ma'shein shar Yisrael osim. So this word kol was actually for Rabbi Eliezer to include a ger and a katan who became a gadol on Sukkot, who are allowed to build, according to Rabbi Eliezer, they would be allowed to build a sukkah on Chol HaMoed. What do those two people share? They were not bar chiyuva when Yontif started. Remember, Rabbi Eliezer had this very high bar. You can only build a sukkah that you're going to sit in for all 7 days. Has to be able to stand for 7 days. You have to be in it for 7 days. You shouldn't leave. You shouldn't go anywhere. So he had the word kol was for people who become part of the obligation of the mitzvah of sukkah in the middle of Sukkot. But it wasn't for the purpose of being as a riboy for a katan to be part of it. Ola Rabbanan, all right, so according to Rabbanan, every Jew could sit in the same sukkah, means one after the other could sit in the same sukkah, and you could be machshir a sukkah she'ula, meaning you didn't have to personally own it, even though you could have built a case that, just like the dalad meaning, you have to own. Nonetheless, the sukkah does not have to, even this chag sukkot aseh lecha, you still do not have to make the sukkah that you own. You could borrow from someone else. You don't have to take possession of it as such. Okay, so that's the first piece of this. Second piece, katan she'ena tzarich le'imo. What does that mean? Heichim dami katan she'ena tzarich le'imo. Amri devei Rabbi Yanai kol shenifne ve'enimo mekanachto. The child who is toilet trained. That's what it means. It doesn't call their mother when they're using the facilities. Rabbi Shimon Omer kol shner mishenatov in a kore ima. It's actually here most likely only supposed to be written once. It's a child who awakens from their sleep and they don't call ima. You could read it also, I guess, ima. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. But the point is, it's just because Rashi had it only once. So if you look at Rashi, kol shner mishenatov in a kore ima, he calls her name once. The Gemara points out, Gedolim Nami Karu, elder.
Rabbi, Art Scroll shows that the second Ema goes with this. Ema Gedolim Nami Karu, describing mother, identify one as a minor who needs his mother.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Excuse me. Art Scroll is correct. I'm incorrect. Sorry. Kol Shem Shintav Inakori Ema. Thank you. Ema Gedolim Nami Karu. Now, I was putting the Ema together. You're right. It's the older children also call ima. So rather, the issue is ela ema. We should say kol sheneor ve'enu kore ima. That's where the ima is. See. So what it really means is the child that does not get up and cry mother, mother. What's the difference? The Rashi explains this to us. You can see there's a girsa problem here. Look how many things are suddenly in parentheses. So the Gemara, the Rashi here rather explains as follows. He says Hachi Garcia, because Shener Mishenato, I'm in Rashi. Shenu Karach Acharel Likrota B'chol Shah Shener. Doesn't call his mother whenever he gets up. Uparchina, but the question comes, refutation. Ima Gedolim Nami Karu. Kilomar She'eno Kore Le'imo Hu Dekarit Le Ein Sarich Le'imo. Right? Ha'im Kore Ima Sarich Le'imo Karit Le. I feel a gadol Shem Sarich Le'imo Ragili Krota Geshener. You want to make the distinguishing line of whether someone calls the mother or doesn't call the mother, whether they need the mother or not. I can tell you that says Rashi, their older children also call their mother's name when they wake up. So Ella kol shener ve'enu kore ima. They don't say it twice. What does the twice mean? She'enu karech achareha likrot v'ulashanot ad shetavo elav. It's a child who does not repeatedly call their mother, waiting in their crib or their bed for the mother. Aval korei v'shotek lav tzarich li'imohu. If they call their mother and then they're quiet, so they don't need their mother, and then they move. They're considered chayavim in sukkah, at least midin chinuch. So I want to understand this a little bit on a deeper level. Maybe we'll pause here to do that, and then we'll learn the story of Abaye, or Shammai rather. Excuse me. There's going to be a thing with Abaye also coming, but first Shammai. But before we get to that story, there is really a question here to try to understand. What does it mean that it's a katan shehigia lechinuch? How old a child are we talking about? And notice it's not really an age, but a developmental stage. Now the question is, what is the importance, the significance of telling us that the child who no longer needs their mother is going to be a child who is now obligated in this mitzvah? The mother herself is not obligated in the mitzvah of sukkah. The child is not obligated until the age of bar mitzvah. It has to be a boy because a girl would not be obligated when she's bat mitzvah at all.
Rabbi Engel, if that's true, why stop here? Why stop with sukkah? There's so many. And is this the only case where they would say that a katan is obligated in doraisa, aside from bris milah?
Right. So wait a second. There is a question here if a child is obligated midoraita at all. Meaning that was why the Gemara went out of its way to say this is just an asmachta. It's not actually a mitzvah deoraita. It seems, according to most of the Rishonim, not most of Rishonim, all the Rishonim hold when it says an asmachta, it can't actually be biblical in its scope. As we'll see from the story of Shammai, he might have had a different idea. Strange, but he may have had another idea about this, which we'll come to presently. I wanted to, in terms of your question though, George, if you look at the screen, I actually prepared this before, so I'll put it on now. This is the Gemara later on in our Masachta. This is the Gemara in the third parak, on Daf Membet Amud Aleph. So if you look here at the end of this Mishnah, Katan, it's in green. Katan hayodel naneh chayav belulav. See that? So we have the Katan who doesn't need his mother. That's in the world of Sukkah. But Katan hayodel naneh, that's in the world of lulav. So the Gemara here points out Katan hayodel naneh tan rabbanan Katan hayodel naneh chayav belulav. Litatef chayav b'tzitzit. Lishmor tefillin aviv lokech lo tefillin. All these mitzvahs come on deck. They come on board, actually. The lights turn on as soon as the child is able to do these mitzvahs. Yodei l'daber aviv lomda Torah ukriyat shema. What's the Torah? Torah Maihi Amarav Himnuna Torah Tzivalan Moshe Moshe Kilat Yaakov. Kriyat shema Maihi Pasuk Rishon. Yeah, and it keeps going. Yodei lishmor gufo ochlin al gufo taharot. Lishmor yadav ochlin al yadav taharot. Right, and so it goes. So it is, everything's a developmental stage, but it's not to say at any point here that the child's obligated to do right in that particular mitzvah. We're going to come back to this when we get to this is in a certain way the headquarters, because this goes into it even more than we have here. But I wanted to learn together Tosfot, at least part of Tosfot, I should say. There's one part of Tosfot we're going to skip because it's too many extra pieces. We won't get to anything else tonight if we go too far into it. But let's say the notion of the katan, the katan sheigel lechinach. That's the dibur matchil. First, Bali Tosa point out something that is, I would say, the syntax of the Gemara. So I'm here on Tosa dibur matchil. Katan sheigel lechinach. Kigon katan she'enot tzarich le'imo afal pi dematnitin katani la behedya. Even though, if you look carefully at the Mishnah, you could have teased this off the Mishnah, in the Gemara and unpack it. We could have just looked in the Mishnah and understood. It said, children are exempt, except for children who are the age of chinuch. meaning they don't need their mother anymore. It said that in the Mishnah. So you could have figured it out. However, say Tosfot, okay, derech hashas lahakshul ataretz came. That's generally how it works. The way of the Gemara is to have a certain syntax of how it operates. So the Gemara asks the question and answers the question, and then it moves from there. Yeah. So this is a great callback, I must say. This Tosfot, because the next line of Tosfot should ring a bell for some of us from the Daf Shavua program. Utikavate ber kama de chagiga, de darish kol zechur chol rabot haktanim. There in Masechet Chagiga, for the uninitiated, those who didn't do that much Chazara, it's right here on your screen, Daf Daled. So we have the discussion about who is exempt from this mitzvah. And here it mentions Amar Mar, Kol Zechurcha, L'Rabot Eraktanim. When it said in the pasuk Kol Zechurcha, that's to include children. In the mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel. I'm on the screen, by the way, not in the Gemara here, but we'll look here first, right? Says the Gemara, V'hatnan, Chutz Mecheresh Shota B'Katan. The Mishnah in Masechet Chagiga actually uses exactly those words, right? They're exempt. Cheresh Shota and B'Katan are exempt. Amar Abaye Lo Kashya. Kan B'Katan She'Giel Chinuch. Kan B'Katan She'Lo Yigiel Chinuch. Yeah? Katan She'Giel Chinuch. A katan who has gotten to Chinuch. Dirabanan he. It's actually only Dirabanan, not Deoraita. Inachinami. Right? That's obvious. That's true. Ukra Asmachta Ba'alma. Right? So, in other words, the Gemara here, same kind of idea. There's a drasha from a pasuk. The drasha from the pasuk seems to itself include children. The Mishnah already said they're exempt. The Gemara is saying, no, that's just an asmachta. But the distinction is who's obligated is a child who has arrived at the age of chinuch. Right? Now, for those who haven't been in the world of Masechet Chagiga lately, I'll just remind you, as you probably wonder, what's the age for a child who's in terms of going on a Aliyah L'Regel? Well, it's a machloket. Who's the machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel? So we're learning this really quickly. Hakol chavin b're'iyah chutz micheresh shota v'katan. V'tumtim v'androgenes v'nashim v'avadim she'enim v'shuchrarim. Right? Achiger v'asuma v'achole v'azaken u'mish enu yachol la'alot b'raglav. Okay, now the Gemara says, Ezu katan. What's a katan? The katan who's spoken about here. Kol she'enu yachol lirkov al ktefav shel aviv v'lal Yerushalayim l'harabayit divrei Beit Shammai. According to Beit Shammai, it's the child who is so tiny that they can't go from the Kotel Hamaravi Plaza. They come in the dung gate. Wouldn't really. Let's say you did that. You're coming in over there. You would come in there. That's not Harabayit, but that's Yerushalayim. To go up from there, up into the Har Habayit, with the child on your shoulders. But a child who can already go on their father's shoulders could be a little tiny baby. Would already be it would be obligated, quote unquote, in the mitzvah chinuch to go up to Yerushalayim for the Aliyah L'Regel. Ubeit Hillel Omrim, Kol she'enu yachol le'echoz biyado shel aviv v'lal Yerushalayim l'Har Habayit. Refers to a child, according to Beit Hillel, it's a child who can't hold their father's hand. Obviously, the child needs to be able to walk. And to be able to walk from Yerushalayim to the Har Habayit. Yeah? So this is the idea. All right? The machloket here about what is the age of chinuch is not as much of a machloket, it seems, in the Gemara in our Mishnah. There's no Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel. Or is there? Because there's a story about Shammai. So what's that story? About a baby in a crib, as opposed to a child who no longer needs their mother, which is either defined as the child who's toilet trained or the child who is no longer so connected to their mother that they can't get out of bed without the mother coming to get them, which are probably two developmental stages. But so let's look back in Tosfot. Because what Tosfot does says, this is the same thing that happened on Masechet Chagiga. It's happening here again. Udikavate, I'm in the fourth to last line of Tosfot. You could say the fourth line into Tosfot. Udikavate parakam de Chagiga. Dav Daled. The Darish Kol Zechur Chol Rabbanak Tanim Uparach, and the question was V'Hatnan Chutz Mecher Shod V'Katan U'Mishane, and the answer there was Kan B'Katan Shegiel Chinuch Dahainu Kiditnan Hatam Kol She'eni Yachol Echos Biyado Shel Aviv V'Lalet Mishalayim L'Harabayit V'Im Yachol Alot. I'm in the second of the wide lines of Tosfot now. If the child can go up, Hainu Higiel Chinuch. Yeah. Because Salka Daitach, we were of the opinion. The maksha, the one who asked the question, the kol katan marbi mishum dekra stamaktiv marbinan lahu, right? The fact that the Torah had used the word yereh kol zechurcha, and there was some kind of a riboy. The word kol actually meant to include kitanim. So the Gemara Tosfot says it was the same thing over there. The fact there's a pasuk makes it sound like it's not just a rabbinic idea and it's attached to a pasuk. Maybe it's derived from the pasuk, in which case it would be the oraita. It's the same idea. I'm skipping the example from Masechet Nida for various reasons right now. Look at 4 lines up from the bottom of Tosfos V'Hashta. Higia l'chinuch, da'amrin b'chol duchta, ein kulan shavim. When we refer to the expression higia l'chinuch, this is not equivalent in every place within halacha. They're not equal. Ela kol ech lefi inyano. Everything is appropriately associated with whatever the topic might be at that time. And therefore, the hachamrinan, be'in tzarech le'imo, that's here. V'gabi chagiga shecholalot, v'v'sof lulav hagaz, v'gabi lulav b'yodel naneh, v'gabi tzitzit b'yodel itatef, v'gabi torah b'yodel daber. That's what we looked up just previously. Each part of chinuch, the age of chinuch, is a sliding scale, and it's not according to chronological ages, it's according to developmental stages. And that's how we organize it. Now, the way Tosfot see it is, this sugya is a parallel sugya. Lahavdol fe'avdol, if it was mathematics, there would be an equation, and we're plugging in the different variables, but it's the same equation in both times, both cases. There's a statement, they're Paturim. There's a pasuk that seems to say they're chayavim. There's a Mishnah that seems to imply, even though it just said they're patur, it's sort of not patur. Depends on the definition of a katan. And the Gemara's answer, finally, in both cases is, it's an asmachta. Really, it's a rabbinic derivation, and it's no more than an asmachta as such. Let me stop here for a minute, and let me see other questions, comments, something specific.
But the obligation would be on the parents or on the father, really.
The obligation will be on the father. There's actually a machloket between the Magen Avraham, who maintains that it's exclusively the father's obligation, and I believe the Elia Rabbah, who maintains that if the father is not in the picture, the mother is obligated. The Magen Avraham also mentions that if the father is not there, so the Beit Din is obligated in loco parentis. There's a mother, so the only one who could be in charge of the chinuch of the child, again, from a formal perspective, no one's suggesting fathers educate their children, mothers don't. That was never true. The mothers are always teaching the children, but who has the obligation? Who for whom is it? This is your mitzvah. You can't shirk your responsibility and leave it to someone else. So there's a machloket about this, actually. There's another sugya, which we're not doing right now. I guess we'll get to it when we come to Daf Mem Bet. Is there any obligation actually on the child? Yeah, they get a kiyum. But you say to the child, you're 6 already. You're getting older. You're 6. You really have an obligation. You got to wear tzitzis. If the kid says, I'm not ready, So you say, yeah, but the average kid at age 6 should be wearing tzitzis. You get tzitzit when they're 3 years old, and kid is running late. So that's a discussion. Some of these things have already moved. Tefillin, nobody gives tefillin to an 8-year-old child. You look at the Gemara that we saw, the Breita, the child can take care of the tefillin. That's all you need. You have a conscientious kid, then good. And by the way, a child who's 12 years old, a boy is 12 years old, and he can't take care of his tefillin, and it's a month before the bar mitzvah, so maybe Taki can't give him his tefillin. When he turns 13, he's going to be obligated. So what's the point of the mitzvah of chinuch? It's to educate the child to learn the right way of how they're going to be able to do the mitzvah. And that will bring us now to this story of what's going on with Shammai, to open the discussion a little further and to see, at least to hear about some of the Rishonim, what's going on with them. Journey with me to this strange story. It's a very beautiful story. I mentioned I've used it and will use it many times in Drush as a beautiful educational message. But I mean, was Shammai just doing this because it was something nice to do, or is there actually halachic significance? The Gemara thinks it is halachically significant, and that's the last few lines. Maaseh v'yalda kalata. Remember, his daughter-in-law had a baby, and he took off the roof over the crib. The Gemara says, Maisa Listor. Right? That's a story that actually countermands what we just learned a minute ago. It undermines what we just said, which was, by the way, not quoted in the name of anyone, which tells you Shammai is not arguing against, formally, we would think. He doesn't seem to be arguing against anybody because he doesn't say anyone else's name. Maybe you want to say he dissents from the Tanakama. Could be. It's highly irregular that you have a story about Shammai Zaken. It's a halachic statement and doesn't say Hillel's name there as well. Is our assumption supposed to be Hillel is the Tanakama? If you look further up in that same Mishnah, you notice that there's actually a discussion between the Beit Shammai people and the Beit Hillel people. The two academies having a conversation about their visit to that Sukka and whether or not words were spoken to the host, all right, that he had never been Mekayim in the midst of Sukkah properly, if this is the Sukkah that he has, where Rosh Varubo is in the Sukkah and the Shulchan is outside. So the Gemara here is not clear. The Gemara explains Chasurei Machsara, V'achi Katane. There's words that are missing from the Mishnah. This is really how you should read it. Shammai Machmir. Shammai was Machmir. Umasanami V'yalda Kalato Shel Shammai. So it's two statements. Number one, even though we just learned in the Gemara, in the Mishnah rather, that Katan She'eino Tzarich Le'imo, that's the Katan that's obligated, Shammai is Machmir. Now, to what extent is he Machmir? By the way, there's also a story, Umaisanami V'yalda Kalato Shel Shammai Azaken, Upichet and Ma'azeva, V'sikech al Amita B'shvil HaKatan. He wanted the Katan to be able to be under the schach. So, how are we meant to understand what actually transpired here? It's weird, strange. So various Rishonim tried to understand it. The Ritva was one of those. The Ritva has an idea. Oh, before the Ritva, I'm sorry. Let me just tell you the following. Before the Ritva, I'm just looking at, the Ritva, sorry, it is the Ritva first. We generally have a principle that if you're exempt from something, but you do it anyway, you're called a hedyot, like a commoner. Because if you're exempt from it, you're not supposed to be trying to do it, right? The Gemara says this, kol hapator midavar ve'oseu nikra hedyot. So what was Shammai doing? Okay, so the Shammai machmir means he thought me'ikar hadin, there was some kind of obligation going on here. He wasn't being machmir means he didn't really think there was any obligation, but he did it anyway. He's more machmir than the shita that holds that it's a Katan She'eino Tzarich Le'imo. That's fully consonant with what we just saw on the screen in the Mishnah over here. Beit Hillel thinks the child has to be holding his father's hand. What does Beit Hillel say? He's riding on his father's shoulders. That's a younger age. A child can ride on the father's shoulders but can't yet walk. That's even a younger child. So Katan She'eino Tzarich Le'imo, Shammai says, more machmir than that. Now, in what sense is he more machmir? You know, when you say that, you know, the Ritva holds that it means the chumrah here is he thinks that the standard is the wrong standard. It's too light to wait till the child is no longer need the mother. The Perush Kadmon, another one of the Rishonim, points out that no, the kavana is pshat. Shammai was more machmir generally in his mitzvahs, so he did what he did. And that's what he was expecting to have happen. See, the Perush Kadmon says it's no different than the list of people we have in Daf Chav Vav and Bet who were going up to the sukkah to eat figs, to drink some water. They weren't really obligated, but they took it on themselves. Yeah, it's not exactly that they're putter. They're not putter midavar. It's that they're putter, but you're still going to get a kiyum. Putter midavar ve'oseu nikra hedjot is you're putter from the mitzvah. You're not really supposed to do it. You decided you're going to do it. With the te'enim, we learned our Daf Chav Vav. You want to be more machmir? Go ahead. So Shammai was one of those people who was more machmir when it came to sukkah. But we have to try to understand a little bit what was the rationale. So what does he think? He thinks there's some kind of obligation, assuming he thinks there's an obligation. There's two different ways of looking at it. The Ritva has two interpretations himself. First of all, Shammai might maintain the following. Who's obligated in being in a sukkah? The man, the father, is obligated being in the sukkah. And why is he obligated? The Torah says, the father cannot truly sit in a sukkah unless his child of whatever age is able to be in the sukkah with him. You'll ask me, wait a minute, why don't you apply that logic to his wife as well? So the Ritva writes, because halachically a man cannot compel his wife to do a mitzvah for him. It's really for fulfillment of the father's obligation of a sukkah. If he has a child, he has to bring the child into the sukkah. It's not the child has a chiyuv, midrabanan, called chinuch, that's on the father to teach a child. This child's too young. But really, this has to do with the obligation of the father of Teishvu Kein Taduru. Who can the father, the man of the household, not obligate and force? He can't force his wife. He can't be kofa her to do the mitzvah. Therefore, he takes what he can get. So he can get his child in there. Even if the child is not actually themselves, there's no obligation on the father. Al chinuch. What's the obligation? Obligation is yeshiva b'sukkah. And it's on the father. And there's another aspect of Teishvu Kein Taduru. To put it in much less, even less romantic terms, just like he has to, we'll see shortly, the Mishnah is going to say, the Gemara is going to say, that right here on our page, that you should bring your nice vessels into the sukkah, bring your nice china and everything that has to do with your house. Your child's also part of your house. You got to bring them in. It's the first view of the Ritva. You can't do that with your wife, because your wife is not an object. I'm ad-libbing, but that's the basic idea. You cannot compel her to do this.
Yeah,
so
but
let's be an house, be an house.
But you eat plenty of meals in your own kitchen without your kids, so why is it Ke'en Taduru that you have to eat with them in the sukkah?
You know what? That might be why the Ritva came up with a second answer.
Plus, in biblical time, most households had only one room, one big room.
Yeah. But Arthur's point is still there. Like, let's say the kid's not home. Get the kid in the house, because that's Ke'en Taduru. Second answer.
Question to you, Rabbi. When you say child, you really mean a son, not a child. Because the girl...
Right, except that, no, based on what I'm saying now, the first answer to the Ritva, I'm glad you mentioned that. The first answer to the Ritva, we know the difference between little boys and little girls. A little child is Teishvu Kein Taduru. Very good. When we're talking about the mitzvah of chinuch, chinuch can only be for a mitzvah that you're going to be obligated in. There's no chinuch for a mitzvah you're not going to be obligated in. So, but you're right. According to the first answer to the Ritva, again, whenever you see two answers, you have to ask, was that just like a throwaway? Well, this is also a nice idea. Or is it because there's really something not adding up with the first answer? The Ritva's second answer, hopefully, is more resonant. He says, look, you have to be able to raise your child in such a way that they're at a developmental stage where they're going to get something out of the mitzvah that they're doing. They understand what they're doing. They can speak, teach them the Shema Yisrael. They can shake the lulav, shake the lulav. When can you not bring a child into the sukkah? According to what the Mishnah says, the child needs the mother. So what's going to happen? The child is going to, according to Chachamim at least, the child is going to need his mother. The mother's not obligated in the sukkah, but he'll be in the sukkah calling for the mother. So you're forcing the mother to come into the sukkah. And the father has an obligation to stay in the sukkah. He's sleeping in the sukkah. So not royal for chinuch, as long as he needs the mother. Why is it going on the mother? When the child can be in bed and doesn't need his mother, so then he could be in a sukkah overnight to sleep in the sukkah. You'll say, all right, it's so important he has to sleep in the sukkah. Why don't you just say he has to eat in the sukkah? So I don't remember now who says this. Might have been the Pnei Yeshua, who says that when you learn about how a child is obligated in terms of netilat lulav, it doesn't say a child who knows how to lift it should get the lulav, but rather Katan yodei l'na'aneya.
So is that why we have chinuch sets?
Yeah, I'm not into the chinuch sets because of the mitzvah. By the way, there's an issue there, but it actually turns on this.
I know. I'm only saying it.
We'll talk about it a lot when we get there. By the way, the chinuch sets. Yeah. If a child's holding the lulav and thinks as a child, that all you need to do in the mitzvah is a half measure, is the picking up. But they don't know about the na'anuim, which is part of the mitzvah. Certainly the rabbanon is an add-on. So then you haven't given them proper chinuch. Therefore, the age of chinuch for a daled minim is katan hiyodel na'aneya, not katan hiyodel natel. So I have to be able to do the whole mitzvah. This child cannot stay in bed overnight because when they wake up, they can't get out of the bed themselves. They need to call the mother. So the second answer, what does Shammai hold? Shammai holds as long as they're roy to be able to fulfill this mitzvah, right? And they're not really able to totally fulfill this mitzvah until the time that they're able to be, in the sukkah. Says Shammai. Can I ask you something? Shammai. This is Shammai talking in the Ritva's explanation. So what if the kid can't get out of the bed? So what if the child's calling the mother? The child knows how to be in a bed. The bed's going to be in the sukkah. What's the age of chinuch? Whatever age you are. Or to say it differently, one of the achronim, based on the Ritva, said like this. You know what a child knows how to do really, really well? Sleep. Isn't part of the mitzvah. The main mitzvah is the eating and the sleeping. So you know what this baby has to do? The baby has to sleep in the sukkah. Bingo. The age of chinuch for Shammai is an infant, because the infant knows how to sleep. QED. The Chachamim say, come on. That we talk about the mitzvah of chinuch. We don't literally mean just to go through the motions. A child does not have any appreciation of what's actually happening whatsoever. You'll tell me, does a child who's walking up to the Har Habayit understand the intricacies of Maseches Zvachim? No, probably most adults don't either. So what? Child knows going with his father is some special trip. Okay, that's the age of chinuch, to walk. According to Shammai, in that context, the infant is on the parent's shoulders, and the child needs legs to get up to the Har Habayit. Good, the child has legs. The father's legs is riding on top of the father, so the father's taking him up. For Shammai, the Chumrah here, again, it's the second reading of the Ritva, is actually the idea that the child is actually already able to participate in the mitzvah. That's all we need. There's some machloka between the two. Now, assuming that indeed Shammai's idea is that there's something about chinuch, not about the first explanation, which I think I agree with you is weaker, that it's something about the father's mitzvah. It's really about the child, some kind of thing with a chinuch. So what's going on? What's going on here with the story with the little infant, mamash, an infant? So if you go with the answer I just gave you now, so all right, the child knows how to sleep, good enough. There are others who gave other answers though. The Marshal had a particular answer, which I think is kind of, it's hard for me to understand it, but that's what he said. There's another child in this story who's not being mentioned. And this is how you should read this story in the Gemara. Masen nami v'yalda kalata shel Shammai hazaken. There was a story where the daughter-in-law of Shammai, Hazaken, had a baby, and Shammai took the ma'azeva, the roof, off from the bed of a katan, not of a tinok, but of a katan. That the tinok that was born was a little baby. There was a baby born, so the baby had all the mother's attention. So once the baby had the mother's attention, this child, who was approximately, according to Marshal, about 5 years old, was called a katan, and therefore that part of the roof over the 5-year-old's bed, the grandfather said, my daughter-in-law is distracted with her new baby. This child doesn't need his mother anymore because the new baby taking the mother's attention. The child should be in a sukkah. Doesn't need his mother anymore because another baby pushed him off, and he's 5. The Aruch LaNer didn't like this answer. He thought it was a strange answer. I didn't really understand, I mean, really? Why throw in that there's a new baby? Sheyalda kalato makes it sound like it's a baby and it's above the crib.
It also implies that the maturation of the child is not dependent on himself, but on what attention his mother gives him or not.
Yeah. Something. If I'm reading the Marshal correctly, that's what it seems That's what it seems. That's what it seems to be. So I mean, it's strange, but the answer the Aruch Laner tries to, as we might say, touch up what the Marshal said. He wants to sort of give him an answer, like something to hang his hat on. So he says what he thinks the Marshal really meant was that according to Shammai, the Katan is already obligated in the chinuch of being in the sukkah, and since there is already a situation that this child, that even if the child needs the mother, Shammai disagrees with the previous statement in the Mishnah. Even if the child needs the mother, is still obligated in the sukkah, and what? But why didn't the mother join him in the sukkah to take care of him? Because there was a little baby. Yeah. In the first rendering, what I understood in the Marshal directly, it's our quote, it seems to be much more that something about the birth of the baby distracted the mother. Therefore, the child, as you said, Philip, it just kind of matured. The child's ready now. 5 years old approximately, and it's good. But the Aruch LaNer said, no, it's that the child is obligated regardless of whether it needs the mother or not. The point was the mother wasn't around, so Shammai himself took off the roof. Maybe not. Maybe not. Okay. Anyway, again, and the word katan as opposed to a tinok is a katan. I don't know. Now, another view. The Pnei Yoshua says that what Shammai is trying to teach us here is he thinks the word kol in kol ha'ezrach is not just an asmachta like any other asmachta. Pardon?
Kol zechurcha.
No, that's in Chagiga. I'm in Sukka. In Sukka, it's kol ha'ezrach b'Yisrael Yeshua Sukkot. Yeah. The pasuk is in Vayikra.
Yeah.
It's in Parshat Emor.
It's an Emor, yeah.
Hold on, I'm coming.
No, you're
It's
right.
an Emor.
As fast as I can. I'm trying to get it for you. Here we are. Bingo.
Yeah, it's an Emor.
It's in,
This is the one I'm talking about. Over here, down below.
It's in Shishi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by Kriya here. I'm getting in trouble.
And we don't land it on Shavuot.
You don't lay it on Shavuot, the second day?
No. For second day we do.
Oh, yeah. Second day is
Kasher.
today. Sorry, take it back. You should have said it right away. Yeah.
I was letting it go.
Sukkot is twice, right? Sukkot is first.
So Sukkot is twice, Pesach is once.
Pesach is once.
So here it is. Judy, you see it? It's this word.
No, I know it. Yeah.
That's the one we're talking about. That's the one in question. So maybe there really is a reason to be mechayev more of a chiyuv of chinuch for a child when there's some kind of a ribui from the pasuk. Kol Ezrach B'Yisrael. And by the way, supporting the Pnei Yoshua is the fact that we have the same discussion. That's why we learned that Tosfot in the context, as you said, Yehuda, a moment ago, in the context of the Aliyah L'Regel. Kol Zechurcha. And that's why Shammai and Hillel are disagreeing. What's the age of chinuch? Shammai is saying, I know the kid doesn't know what's happening. He's a little baby. You're holding him on the shoulders. You're going up. But fine. But you're going up, and there is something about the ribui here. It could be. Now there is even a claim, which I think is pretty hard to make, but there is such a claim that I saw quoted in the Tiferet Zion. I saw quoted in the name of Tiferet Zion. It actually says that. And I don't know how this is possible, but that Shammai holds it's actually really a drasha. It's not an asmachta. It's a drasha gemura. I don't understand what that means. I don't know how that could be. The Gemara itself said it's an asmachta, number one. Number two, does anyone actually hold that a child can be obligated to a right in any mitzvah? I never heard that. So I just didn't understand what that was about, but it's interesting. Interesting for consideration.
Just bris milah.
But it's not the child's obligation, the father's obligation.
That's true. Yeah.
And the child's obligation, by the way, for bris milah does kick in for 13.
Right.
And they're a gadol, so the father's not obligated anymore. Yeah. I don't know. I try to think about it. I don't have a good answer. Okay. There was one other thing I wanted to share with you, and I can't remember. All right, let's move ahead. Let's move ahead because I want to just at least cover the next Mishnah. Were there any questions or comments about what we've learned so far this evening? The silent types. I have 4 minutes. Oh, because it shows at 8 now. Sorry. So actually, I have less than 4 minutes because people have to get there. It's going to take them 10 minutes. We're not starting the Mishnah now. Okay. No. Let me take this opportunity. Talmud isn't just black and white. That's very cute, Ed. All right. I will have to go to Mincha. Next week, Baruch Hashem, there's a wedding. So it's outdoors, and they asked me to come to be there for just the chuppah, I guess. So I won't be available for the shiur because exactly the same time. People know my schedule better than me. I'm going to be away August 4th for a few weeks. When I come back, we're starting Elul pretty much. It'll be before Elul, but a little bit before Elul. As you know, there's a lot of uncertainty now. We're trying to plan a lot of things for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. It's going to take significant time. But I hope that in Elul, we'll already continue with the shiur because it's germane. It's the Minyana Diyoma for Sukkot.
Okay, so there's no shiur then until at least a little before Elul. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll be back in touch. I'll be away, let's say 2 weeks, but then when I come back, I think it's just a little stressful. Like right when I get back, I'm going to have to rush to help everybody get settled. We're planning a bunch of things. We'll see how it pans out. But then we'll get back into it. This is germane. This is our holiday. We're coming back to Sukkot once again. Also,
Rabbi,
So do you want to have a shiur August 7th?
I want to say thank you, Rabbi, for the. I won't join you anymore, but thank you very much.
We should say Chum Shalom.
Yeah.
We'll come see you in Eretz Yisrael. If you'll
Oh,
invite me.
doctor's going back. Pleasure, Doc.
Excellent.
We will miss you, Philip.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'll
miss
miss
you.
you guys too.
All the best.